know it's early in the morning, but I just know Bill Cosby, Bill who got off, he didn't get a fair trial. We can say that. But was convicted for his part of sexual abuse and all that type of stuff. And now he's coming out. I mean, sometimes you just gotta just don't comment.
YouTube removed R.KELLY's official channel, citing a violation of YouTube's terms of service, but it hasn't banned his music and will continue to offer his music catalog on YouTube Music. Kelly was convicted of sex trafficking and racketeering last month.
February 19, 2022, a letter motion for leave to file excess pages memorandum of law in support of defendant's Rule 29 motion by Robert Sylvester Kelly was submitted by Bonjean Jennifer. February 21st, 2022, the order was granted for the letter of motion for leave to file excess pages as to Robert Sylvester Kelly was ordered by Judge Donnelly. February 27, 2022, the motion was resubmitted for an acquittal by Robert Sylvester Kelly, submitted by Jennifer Bonjean, stating the following: arguing the government failed to prove defendant guilty of the offense of racketeering count 1. A. The government's proof did not establish an enterprise. B. Common purpose. C. Enterprise distinct from racketeering activities. D. Person enterprise rule. E. The government failed to prove that the so-called enterprise's activity affected interstate commerce. F. The government's proof did not establish a pattern of racketeering. 1. Racketeering Act 1, bribery. 2. Racketeering Act 2, sexual exploitation of a child, Stephanie. 3. Racketeering Act 5, Mann Act violation, Geronda. 4. Racketeering Act 6, forced labor, Geronda. 5. Racketeering Act 7, sexual exploitation of a child, Geronda. 6. Racketeering Act 8, Mann Act violations, Jane. A. Racketeering 8A, transportation. I. Intent. Double I, violation of California Health Safety Code 120290. B. Racketeering Act 8B, coercion or enticement. 7. Racketeering Act 9, Mann Act violations, Jane. A. Racketeering Act 9A, transportation. B. Racketeering Act 9B, coercion or enticement. C. Racketeering Act 9C, coercion or enticement. D. Racketeering Act 9D, transportation. 8. Racketeering Act 10, sexual exploitation of Jane. 9. Racketeering Act 11, forced labor of Jane. 10. Racketeering Act 12, Mann Act violations, Faith. A. Intent. B. Coercion or enticement. C. New York Public Health Law Section 2307 and Penal Law 120.20. 11. Racketeering Act 13, forced labor, Faith. 12. Racketeering Act 14, Mann Act violations, Faith. And 2. The government failed to prove counts 2 through 9 of the indictment. Also that day, a letter motion for extension of time to file supplemental Rule 33 motion by Robert Sylvester Kelly was submitted by Jennifer Bonjean. March 1st, 2022, the order granting the motion for extension of time to file the defendant's supplemental Rule 33 motion was granted, stating if any is due by March 21st, 2022. No further extensions will be granted, changing the time in which to submit due by March 21st, 2022. No further extensions will be granted. Order by Judge Donnelly. March 10th, 2022. A scheduling order as to Robert Sylvester Kelly. The court has received the defendant's motion for an acquittal. The government's response was due then by March 21st, 2022. And the defendant's reply, if any, was due by April 4th, 2022, ordered by Judge Donnelly. March 17th, 2022, motion for leave to file excess pages in response to the defendant's Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure Rule 29 and 33 motions was submitted by the USA government as to Robert Sylvester Kelly, and this was submitted by Maria Cruz Melendez. That same day, the judge granted the motion for leave to file excess pages in response to the defendant's Federal Rules of Criminal Procedures, Rule 29 and Rule 33, motions by USA as to Robert Sylvester Kelly, ordered by Judge Donnelly. March 21st, 2022, supplemental motion for new trial was resubmitted by Robert Sylvester Kelly by way of Jennifer Bongine, stating the following: arguing defendant was denied effective assistance of counsel where his trial attorneys failed to conduct a meaningful voir dire of potential juries and challenge unqualified jurors, some of whom had watched the inflammatory docu-series Surviving R. Kelly or were familiar with prior accusations of sexual abuse of minors against defendant. Counsel's objectively unreasonable performance during voir dire resulted in the impaling of a jury that was neither fair nor impartial. 2. Defendant is entitled to a new trial where one of his trial attorneys labored under a disabling conflict of interest as a result of her simultaneous representation of the defendant and the government's star witness, Jane. That was imputed to the entire defense team.
As R. Kelly sits behind bars awaiting sentencing next year for his conviction of sex trafficking and racketeering in New York, other legal battles are mounting. The disgraced singer is facing a laundry list of state and more federal charges. He'll face them in his hometown of Chicago.
Yeah, it's a pretty big day here in Chicago, particularly all the women that may have been victimized by R. Kelly's pattern behavior, all the women who have been heard in stories, allowed to just languish over years and years, who never thought they'd see the light of day and justice be served. It's a big day for them here in Chicago. This has been something that's pretty much been an open secret in Chicago for quite some time. So to see this happen is huge. There are obviously R. Kelly fans who love his music, who are going to be against whatever comes up, and that's just a different group of individuals that I just can't even put a rhyme or reason to. But it's a big day for victims, and victims being heard, particularly Black women being heard, with R. Kelly finally being convicted. What we can expect to see of proof, there's potentially evidence that he was on tape in terms of the conversation about bribing a Cook County official, in terms of looking at his case, and also as well as using another one of his victims to research child pornography. And so those are pretty scurrilous charges against R. Kelly. And it's just a mountain of pattern of behavior and different individuals used to commit some of these crimes. Really heinous stuff, and he's facing a world of trouble right now. Essentially, the Mann Act was used to be able to bring in terms of escaping the statute of limitations in terms of some of the charges, because some of them go back quite a way. But when the federal government was able to see how he was able to use individuals and create a criminal enterprise, it wasn't just the abuse of these women, it was using handlers and people around him to be able to accomplish some of these objectives in multiple states. Then they were able to put together a case that would encapsulate this enterprise that's usually used to convict mob bosses And R. Kelly's criminal enterprise can involve sexual assault and abuse and of women and young boys. Let's look at it here. R. Kelly's victims were young black women, girls, and boys. So we look at the justice system as it relates to black men and black women. We want to be able to have black victims heard, their cases, to be able to have restitution and justice for them. And I think that's the most important thing. And not looking at another black man being railroaded. You spoke, as you led up to the segment, about Bill Cosby's representatives standing up for R. Kelly. We shouldn't have sexual assault predators sticking up for sexual assault predators as if that makes them innocent of what's going on. So no, I think that we should look at the system of those that are wrongfully accused, not those that have used the system. He has to sit in jail for another 7 months after being in jail since 2019. It's a really tough chance for R. Kelly. He may see the rest of his life behind a jail cell.